Hey everybody, welcome to the Bernina L460 Serger Manual. Today I'm going to be answering a subscriber question while working on page 22. And 22 is all about differential feed. That's one of my favorite topics because differential feed is one of the most powerful tools you have on your serger to help you get great results when you're working with knits and lightweight fabrics. And it's also one of the most popular questions I get when I'm teaching serger classes. What is differential feed? How does it work? So I am going to explain that to you right now. You can see in front of me, I have my serger all set up here. I set it up for a 4-thread overlock, and all my tensions are going to be on 4 to start. My stitch length is going to be at 2.5, and I'm going to start with my differential feed at 1. So those are my machine settings. What I'm going to do to start is I'm going to take the presser foot off so you can see the feed dogs. So from the side view, you can see that you have 2 sets of feed dogs here. There are back feed dogs and front feed dogs. The back feed dogs go at a constant rate of speed, always. The front feed dogs can be adjusted, and that's really what differential feed is, the ability to change the speed of the front feed dogs. Let me start by explaining how differential feed works when you're working with knit fabric first. When you're sewing knit fabric, it can get stretched out of shape because it has to be squeezed underneath the presser foot as you're stitching your seam. By speeding up the front feed dogs, you can actually counteract that stretch by allowing more fabric to go under the presser foot at a faster rate than the back feed dogs are letting it out. What this does is it cancels out the stretch, because as the fabric squeezes under the presser foot, it basically just stretches flat instead of stretches out of shape. So that's why when you're working with differential feed with knits, you would put your differential feed setting on a number higher than 1 on this Bernina, and it's going to speed up the front feed dogs. Now here's the trick though. Just because you're working with a knit doesn't mean you set your differential feed on the first setting, which is 1.5, or the next setting, which is 2.0. You want to make small adjustments to see where the sweet spot is, because if you shove too much fabric in by making the feed dogs go too fast for a knit, you'll end up with other problems. So that is how differential feed works when you're sewing knits. Let me put the presser foot back on, and what we'll do is I'll sew a knit and I'll show you how it looks with the differential feed set at 1 and then with the differential feed set properly. I've got my differential feed set at 1 right now, and just to remind you, the differential feed setting is the lower knob on the right side of the machine. If you missed the overview video explaining where that is, it's on the right side and it's the lower knob over here. Okay, so I've got that set at 1, and let's just stitch this and see what happens. All right, let's see how this looks. I'm just going to lay it right here on my sewing table, and I think you can see, looking at it from the side, that it's not laying flat, it's kind of bumped up. That's an indication that the fabric is stretching out of shape. Also, the other thing I'm going to just, as an aside here, you can see that my lower looper is coming around to the front of my stitch a little bit here. So just as a bonus, I'm going to adjust the tension to fix the stitch too. So in this case, because the red lower looper thread is pulling to the front, I'm just going to adjust the tension on that lower looper to like 4.5, just to get it a little bit snugger. And let's see if that helps the stitch. And I'm also going to put my differential feed on 1.25. Now that is an imaginary setting on this serger because my differential feed goes from 1 to 1.5. I don't want to jump all the way to 1.5 because that might be too fast. I mean, it might make the feed dogs go too fast for this fabric. So I'm going to go to 0.125, or the middle of 1 to 1.5. Let's stitch it again and see if we fixed our tension problem and if the differential feed is correct. All right, let's lay this one down and see. All right, you can see that the tension is much better. My red lower looper thread is staying at the cut edge. It's not wrapping around to the front. And the fabric is laying flatter. I think we could get a little bit better though. So I'm going to adjust my differential feed to 1.5 now, and let's see how that looks. I'll just cut off my original edge where I used the 1.0 differential feed. Let's try this. Okay, look how nice that looks in comparison. Nice and flat. That would be an example of what a perfect differential feed setting is for this knit. Okay, and I had to go to 1.5. Okay, so in reverse, if you're working with a lightweight or sheer fabric, the fabric can actually gather up by the tension of the threads and create a ripply gathered up seam. You can see in front of me I have a double layer of cotton voile here, and I serged the edge using a differential feed setting of 1, and you can see that the fabric is just not laying flat. So I put my differential feed on the lowest setting of 0.7, and you can see how much better that is. So that's how differential feed works in reverse. You can slow down the front feed dog so it's letting less fabric under the presser foot compared to what the back feed dogs are letting out, because now they're going faster. And basically what it does is taut sew for you. So this is an example of the differential feed when you're working with a lightweight or sheer fabric. I also want to mention I am working on a new class for patternreview.com. It's an updated version of Break Your Serger Out of the Box. If you're enjoying this Bernina L460 Serger Manual series, you will love this class because I use the Bernina to shoot the lessons, and I really dive in deep into some of these topics that I've been sharing with you here. So stay tuned for details. It should be available by the end of the month or the beginning of April. If you have any questions or comments about differential feed, please post them below and I will help you. If you have specific questions about something you're struggling with on your serger, you can post those as well and I'll add them to my topic list. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you next week for another episode of the Bernina L460 Serger Manual.